The lights of the Bellagio casino floor flicker against worn poker chips. A 12-year-old girl sits across from seasoned players, her small hands steady on cards that could change everything. Behind her stands a man whose company hangs by a thread, $12 million in debt. 3 generations of family legacy crumbling. Tonight, an impossible bet will either destroy what remains or restore what was lost. The girl recovers her grandfather's empire not through inheritance, but through an unlikely poker game that defies every odd. Experienced players underestimate the quiet determination in her eyes. They see a child, she sees an opportunity. In Las Vegas, where fortunes rise and fall with the turn of a card, sometimes the smallest hands hold the greatest power. A 12-year-old girl's unlikely poker bet becomes the most extraordinary recovery story ever witnessed at these tables. The chips are down. The stakes are impossibly high. And tonight, everything changes. Main script: the fluorescent lights of the Bellagio poker room cast long shadows across green felt tables. It's 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in November. And the high-stakes section holds only the most desperate players, those with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. At table 7 sits Marcus Chen, 58 years old, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he arranges his chips. 3 months ago, he inherited his grandfather's construction company, Chen and Associates, worth $12 million on paper. Today, that same company teeters on the edge of bankruptcy, crushed by debt, bad contracts, and a dichotomy that showed no mercy to small family businesses. Marcus never wanted to be here. He'd spent his life as a high school mathematics teacher, content with his modest salary and predictable routine. But when his grandfather passed away, the weight of 3 generations fell on his shoulders. The old man had built something beautiful from nothing, came to America with empty pockets and a dream. Turned that dream into a construction empire that employed 60 families. Now those 60 families faced unemployment. The bank had given Marcus 30 days to pay the outstanding loans or lose everything. Tomorrow was day 29. "Sir, are you playing or folding?" The dealer's voice cuts through Marcus's thoughts. He looks down at his cards: Queen of Hearts, Jack of Spades. Not a strong hand, but not terrible either. Across the table, a young girl sits perfectly still. She can't be more than 12 years old, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing an oversized sweater that makes her look even smaller. Her name tag reads Sophie, though nobody knows her last name. She appeared at the casino 3 hours ago with her guardian, an elderly woman who sits quietly in a chair behind her, knitting and occasionally offering gentle encouragement. "I call," Marcus says, pushing chips forward. His voice carries the exhaustion of a man who hasn't slept properly in weeks. Sophie doesn't speak. She simply nods and matches his bet with the precision of someone far beyond her years. Her chip stack is modest but carefully maintained. She's been playing conservatively, winning small pots consistently, while the bigger players burned through their bankrolls on risky bluffs and desperate all-in moves. The flop reveals 10 of hearts, 9 of clubs, and King of diamonds. Marcus feels a flutter of hope. He needs an ace or an 8 to complete a straight. The probability runs through his mind automatically, a habit from his teaching days. Roughly 15% chance. "Check," says the third player. A real estate mogul named Davidson, who's already lost $40,000 tonight, chasing his losses. Sophie studies the board with remarkable concentration. Her small fingers tap once against a tabala gesture so subtle that most players wouldn't notice. But Marcus, trained to observe student behavior, catches it. She's calculating something. "Bet," she says quietly, pushing forward 5,000 in chips. Davidson folds immediately, disgusted. This is ridiculous. What kind of place lets children play poker? The floor manager, a kind-faced woman named Rita, approaches the table. She's been watching Sophie all night with a mixture of amazement and concern. The young lady's guardian has provided all necessary documentation. She's here on a special educational permit studying probability and game theory. Marcus knows it's more than that. Sophie isn't here for education. There's something desperate in her careful play, a purpose that goes beyond learning. He recognizes the look because he wears it himself. The turn card reveals an 8 of spades. Marcus's straight is complete. His heart pounds as he calculates his options. This could be the hand that saves everything, or loses what little he has left. Call, he says, matching Sophie's bet. The river brings a 7 of hearts. Marcus has his straight 7 through Jack. It's a strong hand, possibly the winner. But, as he looks across at Sophie, he sees something that makes him pause. She's not looking at her cards anymore. She's looking at him, and her eyes hold a sadness that no 12-year-old should carry. Behind her, the elderly woman, her grandmother, Marcus, realizes, watches with barely concealed worry. All in, Sophie says suddenly, pushing her entire chip stack forward. $37,000. The table falls silent. Even the background noise of slot machines seems to fade. Marcus stares at the chips, then at Sophie, then at his own dwindling stack. If he calls and loses, he's finished. The company dies tomorrow. But if he calls and wins, time, the dealer announces, giving Marcus 30 more seconds to decide. In that moment, Marcus remembers his grandfather's words. Business isn't just about money, Marcus, it's about understanding people. When you understand what drives someone, you understand everything. What drives a 12-year-old girl to risk everything at a poker table at 4 in the morning? I call, Marcus says, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophie nods solemnly and turns over her cards. Ace of hearts and 6 of hearts. She has a flush 5 hearts. It beats Marcus's straight. The room erupts in murmurs and gasps. Marcus stares at the cards, feeling the weight of failure crush down on him. 60 families will lose their jobs tomorrow. 3 generations of work, gone. But as the dealer pushes the chips towards Sophie, something unexpected happens. She doesn't touch them. Instead, she looks directly at Marcus and speaks for the first time, with real emotion in her voice. Mr. Chen, my grandmother and I have been watching you play all night. We know about your company. Marcus looks up, confused. How could they possibly know? Sophie continues, my grandmother worked for Chen and Associates 30 years ago. Your grandfather gave her a job when no one else would hire her. She was a single mother with no education, but he saw something in her. She worked in the office, learned English, saved money, and eventually started her own small business. The elderly woman behind Sophie stands up slowly. Her face is kind, but weathered by decades of hard work. Mr. Chen, she says with a slight accent, your grandfather changed our lives. When Sophie was born, I promised I would find a way to repay that kindness someday. Marcus feels tears welling up. I don't understand. Sophie pushes the chips back across the table to him. All $37,000. This money belongs to you now. But more importantly, my grandmother has a proposal. The elderly woman steps forward. My business has grown over the years. I own 3 restaurants now, small but profitable. I've been looking for a construction company to help expand. Someone trustworthy? Someone with honor. Marcus stares at them both, overwhelmed. You're offering me a contract. Not just a contract, Sophie says with a small smile, the first genuine expression he's seen from her all night. A partnership. My grandmother believes in investing in good people, just like your grandfather did for her. The elderly woman nods. The initial contract would be worth $800,000, enough to save your company and keep your workers employed, but only if you promise to maintain the same values your grandfather lived by. Marcus feels the weight lifting from his shoulders for the first time in months. Around the table, other players watch in amazement. This isn't just about poker anymore, it's about honor, loyalty, and the ripple effects of kindness across generations. But why the poker game? Marcus asks. Why put yourself through this? Sophie's expression grows serious again. My grandmother wanted to test your character. She said poker reveals who people really are when they're under pressure. She needed to know if you were like your grandfather, someone who would risk everything for others, but still play with integrity. You never intended to keep the money if you won. No, Sophie says simply. But I needed to win first. To prove that good strategy and patience always beat desperation and fear. It's a lesson my grandmother taught me about business and about life. The dealer, who has seen everything in 30 years of casino work, shakes her head in amazement. I've never seen anything like this. Rita, the floor manager, approaches again. Ma'am, I have to ask the educational permit for Sophie. The elderly woman chuckles. Oh, that's real. Sophie is genuinely studying game theory and probability. She's been accepted to MIT's summer program for gifted children. The poker was just practical application. Marcus laughs for the first time in months. It's the sound of relief, mixed with gratitude and wonder. Your grandfather would be proud, he tells Sophie. So would yours, she replies. As the sun begins to rise over Las Vegas, Marcus Chen walks out of the Bellagio with more than just money. He carries with him renewed faith in human connection, the power of integrity, and the understanding that sometimes the most unlikely people hold the keys to our salvation. 2 weeks later, ground breaks on the first restaurant expansion. Chen and Associates crews work with precision and pride, knowing their jobs are secure. In the site trailer, a framed photo sits on Marcus's desk, a picture of Sophie and her grandmother at the poker table. Taken by Rita as a memento of the most extraordinary night the Bellagio had ever witnessed. The business partnership flourishes. Sophie's grandmother, whose name is Helen Liu, brings decades of wisdom about customer service, community building, and the importance of treating employees like family. Marcus brings technical expertise, project management skills, and his grandfather's commitment to quality craftsmanship. Within 6 months, Chen and Associates expands from construction into restaurant consultation. Within a year, they're designing and building commercial spaces across the Southwest. The company that almost died becomes stronger than ever, rooted in values that span generations. Sophie, meanwhile, excels in her advanced mathematics program. She writes her senior thesis on game theory applications in business ethics, using that night at the Bellagio as her primary case study. The paper wins national recognition and earns her a full scholarship to study at MIT 2 years early. But perhaps the most significant change is in Marcus himself. He discovers that his grandfather's legacy wasn't just about building structures, it was about building relationships, creating opportunities for others, and understanding that true wealth comes from the positive impact we have on other people's lives. On the first anniversary of that November night, Marcus, Sophie, and Helen return to the Bellagio, not to gamble, but to have dinner at the restaurant overlooking the poker room. They sit at a table by the window, watching new players take their seats at the green felt tables below. Do you think they know? Sophie asks, cutting into her steak with the precise movements that served her so well at poker. Know what? Marcus replies, that the biggest wins in life usually come from the smallest gestures of faith in other people. Helen raises her glass of water in a toast. To your grandfather, she says to Marcus. To my granddaughter, she says to Sophie. And to the beautiful uncertainty of taking chances on each other. They clink glasses as the lights of Las Vegas sparkle beyond the window. Down in the poker room, new stories are beginning, new chances are being taken, new connections are waiting to be discovered. Marcus thinks about the mathematics of probability that brought them all together that night. The odds against everything aligning so perfectly, Sophie's skill, Helen's recognition, Marcus's desperation meeting their compassion were astronomical. Yet here they sit, proof that sometimes the most improbable outcomes create the most meaningful results. Later that evening, as they prepare to leave, Rita approaches their table. She's been promoted to casino operations manager, partially based on her handling of that remarkable night a year ago. I wanted you to know, she says, that night changed how we think about our customers here. We started a program pairing experienced players with newcomers, focusing on education rather than just profit. Sophie's approach to the game, methodical, ethical, focused on long-term success rather than quick wins, it became a model we teach. Sophie blushes slightly. I was just applying what my grandmother taught me about business. Which was exactly what your grandfather taught me, Helen adds, looking at Marcus. These lessons don't disappear. They pass from generation to generation, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. As they walk toward the casino exit, Marcus notices a young man at one of the lower stakes tables, clearly overwhelmed and about to make a desperate bet that will likely wipe out his remaining chips. Without hesitation, Marcus approaches. Excuse me, he says gently. I don't mean to interfere, but I've been where you are. Sometimes the best bet is knowing when not to bet at all. The young man looks up, frustrated and exhausted. I've lost my car payment. I thought I could win it back quickly. Marcus sits down beside him. What do you do for work? I'm a carpenter. Well, I was. Got laid off last month. Marcus exchanges a look with Helen and Sophie. They both nod slightly. Chen and Associates is hiring skilled carpenters, Marcus says. We're a construction company focused on restaurant and commercial builds. If you're interested in steady work instead of gambling away your future, come by our office tomorrow. The young man stares at him in disbelief. You're serious? Dead serious. But first, cash out those chips and go home. Get some sleep. The casino will still be here tomorrow, but this job opportunity might not be. The carpenter looks at his chips, then at Marcus, then at the cards in his hand. Slowly, he folds and pushes back from the table. Thank you, he says simply. As they finally exit the Bellagio, Sophie takes Marcus's hand on one side and her grandmother's on the other. You know what I learned that night, she says. It wasn't about the cards or the odds or even the money. It was about recognizing when someone else needs what you have to give and having the courage to give it. Marcus squeezes her hand. Your grandmother raised you well. Actually, Helen says with a smile, I think Sophie raised herself. I just provided the foundation, the same way your grandfather provided the foundation for you. The rest was up to each of you. They step out into the warm Nevada evening. 3 generations connected by chance, choice, and the enduring power of human decency. Behind them, the Bellagio fountain begins its nightly show, water dancing in perfect synchronization with music and light. Sometimes, Marcus thinks, the most beautiful things in life happen when separate elements come together in harmony. Water and light, chance and choice, desperation and hope. Just like that impossible night when a 12-year-old girl's unlikely poker bet recovered more than just a company. It recovered faith in the possibility that strangers can become family, that kindness compounds like interest, and that the greatest victories often come disguised as defeats. The construction business continues to thrive. Sophie graduates from MIT with highest honors and returns to Las Vegas to start her own consulting firm, specializing in helping family businesses navigate difficult transitions. Helen's restaurant empire grows to 7 locations, each one designed and built by Chen and Associates crews who take pride in their work because they know they're part of something larger than themselves. And every year on that November anniversary, they return to the Bellagio, not to relive the past, but to remember the lesson that changed everything. Sometimes, risk brings the greatest reward. A second chance can change everything, and trust, patience, and strategy can turn despair into triumph. The cards have long since been shuffled back into the deck, but the connections they revealed remain stronger than ever. In a city built on chance, they discovered something far more valuable than luck. They discovered that the house doesn't always win when human hearts are willing to bet on each other. 5 years have passed since that transformative night at the Bellagio. The story of the 12-year-old poker prodigy and the desperate businessman has become legend in Las Vegas circles. Though few know the real names or the deeper truth behind what happened. Marcus Chen sits in his corner office at Chen and Associates, now occupying 3 floors of a modern building in downtown Las Vegas. Through his window, he can see construction crews working on their latest project, a mixed-use development that will house both affordable housing and small business spaces. It's the kind of project his grandfather dreamed about but never lived to see. The company now employs over 200 people across 4 states. What started as a desperate attempt to save 60 jobs has become a regional powerhouse, but Marcus never forgot the values that brought him back from the brink. A knock at his door interrupts his thoughts. His assistant, Maria, pokes her head in. Mr. Chen, there's someone here to see you. Says it's about the scholarship program. 3 years ago, Marcus had established the Chen Family Foundation, providing college scholarships for children of working families in the construction and hospitality industries. It was Sophie's idea, inspired by her own early acceptance to MIT and her understanding of how education could transform lives. Send them in, Marcus says, expecting another grateful parent, or perhaps a scholarship recipient. Instead, a teenage boy enters, maybe 16 years old, wearing a crisp white shirt and carrying a worn backpack. His name is David Rodriguez, and his nervous energy reminds Marcus of himself at that age, intelligent but uncertain, ambitious but inexperienced. Mr. Chen, my name is David. I received the Chen Scholarship 2 years ago. I wanted to thank you personally and share some news. Marcus gestures to the chair across from his desk. Please sit. Tell me about yourself. David settles into the chair, his posture straightening with determination. My father is a carpenter, works for one of your subcontractors. My mother cleans hotel rooms on the Strip. They never finished high school, but they always pushed me to study. The scholarship helped. More than you know. I'm finishing my junior year with a 4.2 GPA, taking advanced placement courses in mathematics and engineering. But that's not why I'm here. Marcus raises an eyebrow. No. David reaches into his backpack and pulls out a thick folder. I've been working on something for the past year, a research project about sustainable construction methods and their economic impact on working families. I wanted to show it to you because your company has been implementing some of these practices. Marcus takes the folder, impressed by its weight and organization. As he flips through pages of detailed analysis, cost projections, and environmental impact studies, he realizes this isn't just homework, it's professional quality research. David, this is extraordinary work. Where did you learn to analyze data like this? The teenager's face brightens. From Sophie Liu, she's been mentoring me through the Foundation's academic support program. She taught me that mathematics isn't just about numbers, it's about understanding patterns and making connections. Marcus smiles at the mention of Sophie's name. Now 17 and in her second year at MIT, she splits her time between advanced coursework and running educational programs through the Foundation. Her poker skills have evolved into a sophisticated understanding of risk management and strategic thinking that she loves sharing with younger students. Sophie is remarkable. Marcus agrees. What did she teach you about this project? David leans forward, animated now. She said that sustainable construction is like poker. You have to think several moves ahead, calculate the odds, and understand that short-term costs can lead to long-term gains. Look at page 12. Marcus turns to the specified page and finds a detailed cost-benefit analysis showing how energy-efficient building methods, while expensive upfront, create jobs and reduce long-term costs for both builders and occupants. These numbers are compelling, Marcus says. But implementing changes like this across an entire company requires significant investment. That's where page 27 comes in, David says confidently. Marcus flips to find a phased implementation plan that spreads costs over 3 years while maximizing both environmental impact and job creation. It's the kind of strategic thinking that takes most business professionals decades to develop. David, who helped you with this? Just Sophie and my math teacher, Mrs. Patterson. But mostly, I worked alone, researching at the library, interviewing workers, studying your company's projects. I wanted to understand how business decisions affect real families. Marcus sets down the folder and studies the young man across from him. What do you want to do with this research? I want to help implement it. Not just talk about sustainability, but actually build it. My dream is to become a construction engineer who designs affordable housing that working families can both build and afford to live in. The passion in David's voice reminds Marcus of himself at that age. Full of ideas, but lacking the connections to implement them. It also reminds him of Sophie, who saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. Would you be interested in a summer internship? Marcus asks. You could work with our engineering team, help develop pilot programs based on your research. David's eyes widen. You're serious? Completely. But I have one condition. You have to present your findings to our entire management team next month. If they're as impressed as I am, we'll start implementing your recommendations. The teenager jumps up, then immediately sits back down, trying to compose himself. Mr. Chen, I don't know how to thank you. Thanks, Sophie, and thank your parents. And thank yourself for doing the work. I'm just providing the opportunity. After David leaves, buzzing with excitement, Marcus calls Sophie at MIT. She answers on the second ring, her voice carrying across the miles with the same quiet confidence she displayed at the poker table all those years ago. Marcus, I was hoping you'd call. Did David visit today? He just left. Sophie, his research is incredible. How did you guide him to this level of analysis? Sophie laughs, a sound that still carries traces of the serious 12-year-old she once was. I didn't guide him anywhere. I just taught him the same lesson grandmother taught me: how to see patterns, calculate probabilities, and understand that the best strategies consider everyone at the table, not just yourself. He wants to be a construction engineer focused on affordable housing. I know, it's perfect, isn't it? Your grandfather built opportunities for families. Your company preserved those opportunities. Now David wants to expand them for the next generation. It's like watching a chain reaction of positive impact. Marcus leans back in his chair, struck by the truth of her observation. Sometimes I wonder if that night at the Bellagio was really about poker at all. Of course it wasn't, Sophie says, matter of fact, Claire. It was about recognizing potential and having the courage to invest in it. The cards were just the delivery system. 2 weeks later, David presents his sustainability research to Chen and Associates management team. His presentation is polished, his data compelling, and his passion infectious. The room full of experienced executives listens with growing amazement as a 16-year-old outlines a business strategy that could revolutionize their industry. After the presentation, the vote is unanimous. Chen and Associates will become the first construction company in Nevada to implement comprehensive sustainable building practices across all projects, with David serving as a paid consultant throughout the transition. The implementation begins immediately. Workers attend training sessions on new materials and techniques. Suppliers adjust their inventories to support environmentally friendly options. Clients initially resist the higher upfront costs until Marcus shows them David's long-term analysis, proving significant savings over time. The first sustainable project is a mixed-use development in Henderson affordable housing units above small business spaces. Built with recycled materials, solar panels, and energy-efficient systems. David spends his afternoons after school on the construction site, wearing a hard hat and learning practical application of his theoretical knowledge. The project foreman, Miguel Santos, initially skeptical about taking advice from a teenager, becomes David's strongest advocate after seeing how the boy's innovations solve real problems on the job site. This kid, Miguel tells Marcus during a site visit, he doesn't just know theory. He understands what makes construction work for the people doing it. Yesterday, he figured out how to reduce waste by 30% just by changing our material delivery schedule. Marcus watches David explain green building techniques to a group of experienced carpenters, all of them listening intently to someone less than half their age. The scene reminds him of Sophie at the poker table, young, underestimated, but carrying knowledge that transcends experience. Helen Liu arrives at the construction site carrying a thermos of coffee and wearing a warm smile. Now in her mid-70s, she remains actively involved in both her restaurant business and the Chen Foundation. Her hair is completely silver now, but her eyes still sparkle with the same wisdom that recognized Marcus's potential that night at the Bellagio. "How is our young engineer today?" she asks, approaching David. "Mrs. Liu. Look at this," David says excitedly, pointing to a partially installed solar panel system. The panels will generate enough energy to reduce each family's electricity bill by 60%. Helen nods approvingly. "And the families who build these homes, 23 local workers, including 6 who were trained specifically for sustainable construction. They're all getting premium wages for their specialized skills. Good business should lift people up, not use them up," Helen says, echoing a philosophy she's maintained throughout her own entrepreneurial journey. As the afternoon progresses, more visitors arrive at the construction site. Word has spread about the innovative project, and delegations from other construction companies, environmental groups, and city planning departments come to observe the work in progress. Marcus finds himself giving impromptu tours, explaining how David's research transformed into practical application. Each conversation reinforces his growing certainty that they're not just building housing, they're building a model for how business can serve both profit and purpose. Near the end of the workday, an unexpected visitor appears. Sophie has driven down from Boston for spring break. and she walks through the construction site with the same careful observation skills she once applied to poker opponents. David's impact is even more impressive in person. She tells Marcus, the workers respect him because he listens to their expertise while sharing his own knowledge. That's exactly what you did for me, that Naitu saw potential rather than limitations. They stand together watching David collaborate with Miguel to solve a ventilation challenge. The teenager's theoretical knowledge, combining with the foreman's practical experience to create an elegant solution. He reminds me of you, Marcus says to Sophie. Calm under pressure, strategic thinking, focused on long-term outcomes rather than short-term gains. Actually, he reminds me of you, Sophie replies. Someone who inherited responsibility and chose to honor it by lifting others up rather than just preserving what came before. That evening, the entire extended family gathers at one of Helen's restaurants for dinner. The table includes Marcus and his wife Linda, Sophie and Helen, David and his parents, Rosa and Miguel Rodriguez, and several other scholarship recipients who have become like extended family over the years. The conversation flows between English and Spanish, covering topics from construction techniques to college applications to family recipes. It's the kind of multi-generational, multicultural gathering that would have made Marcus's grandfather proud. During dessert, Helen stands to make a toast, her voice carrying the authority of someone who has lived through decades of change while maintaining unwavering values. 5 years ago, we came together around a poker table. Tonight, we come together around a dinner table. Both required strategy, both involved risk, and both created something larger than what any of us could accomplish alone. She raises her glass toward David. To our young engineer, who proves that the best investments are in people who see possibilities where others see problems. Then she turns to Marcus. To our builder, who learned that preserving a legacy means growing it, not just maintaining it. Finally, she looks at Sophie. And to our teacher, who discovered that the greatest victories come from helping others win. As they clink glasses, Marcus reflects on the mathematical improbability of everything that led to this moment. A desperate poker game, a child's strategic mind, an elderly woman's gratitude, and a teenager's innovative research, separate elements that somehow combined to create something beautiful and sustainable. The Henderson project is completed 6 months later, 50% under budget, and 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The energy-efficient systems work exactly as David predicted, and the families who move in enjoy significantly lower utility costs. More importantly, the construction workers who built it have acquired skills that make them valuable in the growing green construction market. David's success attracts attention from universities across the country. MIT offers him early admission with a full scholarship. Stanford extends a similar invitation. But David surprises everyone by choosing the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he can continue working with Chen and Associates while earning his engineering degree. I want to stay close to the work, he explains to Marcus. Theoretical knowledge is valuable, but I've learned that the best solutions come from understanding both the numbers and the people they affect. Sophie, now completing her junior year at MIT, decides to spend her summer in Las Vegas, developing a mathematics curriculum that combines game theory, business strategy, and social responsibility. She partners with local high schools to teach students how statistical thinking can solve real-world problems. Her first class meets in the conference room at Chen and Associates. 15 teenagers from working families learning to see patterns, calculate probabilities, and understand how individual decisions create collective outcomes. Poker taught me that the most important skill isn't knowing your own cards, Sophie tells her students. It's reading other people's needs and finding ways to create mutual benefit. One student, Maria Santos Miguel's daughter, raises her hand. Like what Mr. Chen did for David. Exactly, Sophie says. Marcus recognized David's potential and provided opportunities for him to develop it. David used those opportunities to create innovations that benefit entire communities. Everyone wins when we invest in each other's success. The curriculum proves so successful that other school districts request implementation. Within 2 years, strategic thinking for social impact becomes a standard offering in Nevada high schools, with trained teachers using real local business cases to demonstrate how mathematics applies to community development. Marcus watches this educational expansion with deep satisfaction. The poker game that almost destroyed him has become a foundation for empowering entire generations of young people to think strategically about creating positive change. On the 5th anniversary of that November night, the extended family returns to the Bellagio, but this time, they're not alone. David joins them, along with Maria Santos and 12 other scholarship recipients who have become part of their chosen family. They don't go to the poker room. Instead, they reserve a private dining room overlooking the fountain, where they can celebrate how far they've all come while planning future collaborations. Helen, now 76, but still sharp as ever, looks around the table at faces representing 3 generations and multiple cultures, all connected by shared values and mutual investment in each other's success. That night, she says, gesturing toward the poker room below, we learned that the house doesn't always win. Sometimes, when people choose to bet on each other instead of against each other, everybody wins. Marcus raises his glass in agreement. 2 unlikely hands holding the greatest power to change lives. 2 second chances creating first opportunities, Sophie adds. To trust, patience, and strategy turning despair into triumph, David concludes. As they toast, the Bellagio fountains begin their evening show, water dancing in perfect harmony with music and light. The display draws crowds of tourists who watch in wonder, not knowing they're witnessing a metaphor for the dinner celebration, happening above separate elements coming together to create something magnificent and memorable. The cards from that fateful night have long since been shuffled back into countless decks, but the connections they revealed continue to strengthen and multiply. In a city built on chance, they discovered something far more reliable than luck. They discovered that when people choose to invest in each other's potential, the returns multiply across generations. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected triumph and intergenerational connection, please like this video, subscribe for more inspiring tales of human resilience, and share in the comments